morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to ASEAN for the People Conference 2025, and welcome to the room ASEAN 8. We will soon begin our first session in this room entitled Understanding the Aspiration of Southeast Asia's Youth, which will be conducted in English. Bagi yang membutuhkan penerjemahan ke dalam bahasa Indonesia, silakan mengambil perangkat yang tersedia di dekat pintu. Dan saat meninggalkan ruangan, jangan lupa untuk mengembalikan perangkat ke meja yang ada di dekat pintu. We kindly ask all participants to take their seats as we will begin shortly. For those who wish to go to the restroom or the prayer room, please follow the signage outside the room. To start our session, Understanding the Aspiration of Southeast Asia's Youth, I would like to invite our moderator, Manik Margana Mahendra, Executive Director of Indonesian Youth Council for Tactical Changes, or IYCTC, who will moderate this discussion. Please welcome Manik to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so again, maybe let me introduce myself. My name is Manik Margana Mahendra. Let me just stand up. Okay, so I am the Executive Director of Indonesian Youth Council for Tactical Changes, or a youth-led organization, a youth-led coalition that focused on meaningful youth participation in policy-making processes that specifically on tobacco control. And one of our co-founder also here, Kak Margianta. Thank you for coming. And today, everyone, maybe you guys have understand about the Southeast Asia. While Southeast Asia is home to more than 224 million of young people aged 15 to 34, that is about a third of our population in Southeast Asia, which the region's future truly lies in their hands, or in our hands. And we also have seen how powerful youth voices can be. From Thailand's student movement, and then the reform movements in Malaysia and in Indonesia as well, with the current young people protests to the government. And then we also maybe still remember the solidarity between siblings, the Singaporean and then Thailand people, Malaysia, Indonesia support each other, while the very current situation of the political instability in Indonesia, to the multi-alliance that connect young change makers across the border. But yet many young people still feel unheard. Less than half believe their voices matter in government, and only 16% of parliaments under age 40. Even in Indonesia, it's just like maybe 50-50, yeah? Even though youth make up a third of our regions in Southeast Asia. So without further ado, I think I will just calling one by one our panelists to go with me in here. The first one, she is the co-founder of What Is Up Indonesia, or WIWI, and co-author of the best-selling book Makanya Mikir. I already have one. Do you guys have one? Please buy some. And WIWI is an independent media platform that unpacks Indonesian sociopolitics in a bold, accessible, and often entertaining way, especially for internationally raised Indonesians who grew up and feeling disconnected from local discourse. In 2023, WIWI co-initiated Bijak Memilih, a tech-enabled one-stop platform that empowers first-time voters to make informed choices in the 2024 elections. Please welcome Abigail Limuria. Welcome, Abby. Hello. Yep. Sorry. Okay. And then the second panelist, she is the co-founder of the Young Seekers, or TYS, is a youth leader and cross-border advocate committed to cultivating ASEAN-China savviness among young people. Since 2020, she has led TYS in engaging tens of thousands of youth across Southeast Asia, building extensive networks and nurturing the next generation of ASEAN-China ready leaders. Please welcome Chua Xion. Hello. Last but not least, he is a young legal development professional based in Laos. He serves as the National Technical Assistant for the Judicial Services, Training and Institution Capacity Enhancement, or Justice project, supporting the Ministry of Justice and Judicial Training Institutions in Lao PDR. Beyond his professional role, he wears several other hats, like he is the country director of the ASEAN Youth Advocate Network Laos, and also serves as an impact officer for the Global Shapers Vientiane Hub. Please welcome Mr. Patanapon Namalat, or can I call you Mr. Bang?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, so everyone, we will have like a discussion for about 30 minutes, and then you guys can also have some of the question. I think we are in a full house. Please be ready, panelists. Okay, the first question to open up these sessions, I want to ask Shion first about the youth priorities today. From your perspective, what are the main issues of Southeast Asian youth that are most concerned about today? I think we cannot generalize it, but maybe we can see the pattern, and then you already work with a lot of Southeast Asian youth, right? So in your perspective, what is the issue? What is the priority?
Hi, everyone. First, thank you, Manik, for this question, and also the organizer for inviting me here today. Super honored to see, wow, we are indeed a full house. Yeah, I think as shared by Manik just now, ASEAN has currently about 200 over million people, young people like you and me, and that's about 1/3 of the generation. We are wildly diverse, from languages to food, and even the way we take selfie. In Singapore, young people like to take selfie with the 0.5 wide angle like that, not like that, but yet when we sit down and just communicate with each other, I think there's three big themes that always show up. First, livelihood. Second, voice. And I think the last one is about the future. So maybe I can go deep into these three aspects really quickly. First, livelihood. I think the question that you've usually asked right now isn't just, can I get a job? It's about, can I get one that is stable, meaningful, yet future-proof, right? With all the disruption going around us. And data backs this kind of anxiety, as seen in the panel blurb that I received, as well as what Manik shared. Youth are 3 times more likely than adults to be in insecure or informal jobs, and 71% of the regional workforce is informal. So if you do your calculation, this means that millions of people are hustling without safety nets, or even proper ladder for their career. So in the Young Seekers in program, whenever we bring together youth, be it through our programs like Overseas Learning Journey, Dialogue Session, or Networking Session with professionals who have been there, done that, the conversation is always about, how do I build a career or navigate a path that doesn't just survive the disruption, but actually thrives in it. So all youths across the region have this common topic. And that disruption that I say can be as small as, how AI is disrupting your own work industry, to as big as, geopolitics, terrorists, or even just, the bilateral economic collaboration that, for example, recently this year, Singapore and Malaysia just have a special economic zone together. So this hunger for, or maybe anxiety about the future of work is a unifying experience, whether you are in Jakarta or Vientiane or even in Singapore. So this is number one. Number two, voice. So I have to acknowledge that when I read the blurb, I was quite shocked. According to the ASEAN Youth Development Index, fewer than half of the youth felt hurt by the government. And even though we make up 1/3 of the population, only about 16% of the parliamentarians are under 40 years old. I mean, this gap between the demographics and political presence, I really don't know what to say. It feels like, I'm the star striker of the soccer team, but yet my coach doesn't allow me to touch the ball. So globally, I think we have seen, what happened when youth voices are sidelined. I think just a couple of weeks ago, I think in Nepal, Morocco, I think Gen Z-led protests have literally forced government to be dissolved or resign. So it's not just about youth being noisy. I think ASEAN youth these days are smart. We are all watching and learning. So if, my personal opinion, if institution continue, do not create any structure spaces for youth to voice out what they want, then we will just create our own, and sometimes in a very concerning or maybe disruptive way, like what we've seen in news in other regions. Lastly, quickly, is the future. I believe everyone here is worried about your own future. Come on, right? And I think youth don't just want a paycheck. We want a paycheck in a world that is livable for both you and I. So, one example is climate anxiety. And this is very real because every city I go to gets hotter and hotter. Typhoon just hit harder and harder, hit cities harder and harder. So, and in Young Seekers, because we do cross-border programs and everything, I've seen youths from different parts of the world just bond over such struggles about future very naturally. I think last month I had a very I was in Jakarta last month, then I had this conversation with my volunteers in Indonesia. I remember sharing with them about how much a Toyota Corolla Altis costs in Singapore. That's about 2.5 billion rupiah, so it's about 2,500 juta. And quickly, people just came in to share about their relatively unstable or lower wages and everything. Then within minutes, we are just swapping, what is the coping strategy, what are the, and maybe comparing the daily realities of how to afford an ideal future that we all want, right? So, and all these are over like a meal together, right? So even though we might be different, but actually what we want is kind of simple and same, to build and have a future that is sustainable, meaningful, and fair for everyone. So if you ask me what we are concerned about, correct me if I'm wrong later, livelihood, voice, as well as the future. And what unites us together is we all are all trying to make sense of this kind of stuff, be it opportunity or challenges. And from ground up, I think youth are already connecting. And we are already creating solutions across borders, all thanks to the digital era. And I think the open question next that we need to ask ourselves is, will ASEAN leaders work with us, be it individually or as CSO, as co-architect of this next chapter, or they will just keep playing catching up with us? Thank you.
Okay, please clap for Xion. I think we always trap in the stigmatized that say that, oh, Singaporean may be very fit for the job security kind of things, but then, you also, happen the same struggle for us, just like the livelihood, and then voice also the future. Okay, talking about voice, Abigail, you also have organizations that also help people to voicing out their struggle, their experience maybe. In your experiments or in your experience in what is up in Indonesia, maybe how that you can also share to us when our voices is not being captured enough by the government, and then how we can voicing out, and then how we also can engage to the government or maybe the parliaments.
Okay, thank you, Manik. Maybe just a little bit of context for everyone here who doesn't know what is up Indonesia, or for short, I usually call them WIWI. It's an independent media that I made in 2020, where we basically summarize and translate social political issues here in Indonesia into bite-sized English posts that is more accessible, so that Indonesians who are more comfortable speaking in English, or even international audience, get to follow along on what's happening in Indonesia. And when we talk about voices, right, I think for youth, having our voices heard means the world for us. And for a lot of us, that's what gives our advocacy, our work, and even sometimes our life meaning. But what I've been seeing is, especially here in Indonesia, maybe I can only speak for Indonesia, but it seems like across ASEAN, there's similar problems that are happening. But a lot of the youth here in Indonesia have feel like their voices are not being heard meaningfully. They have tried to voice it out politely. They have tried to voice it out in not so polite way. They have tried to voice it out in a creative way, in all kinds of way. And I think recently we can see it in full display in the recent protests, where there's all kinds of demonstration, all kinds of protests. And yet a lot of these people, it has culminated into that big of a problem because they keep feeling like their voices are not being heard meaningfully. And in What Is Up Indonesia, and we actually, what we try to do is, of course, we try to educate and help young Indonesians to follow along with what's happening here in Indonesia, but we also try to amplify and give stages for a lot of their voices. I think from my experience and what I've learned is that, firstly, if we want our voices to be heard, a lot of the time, we need to be brave enough first to speak it out loudly, right? Because I've frequent a lot of talks where a lot of young people actually ask me, "Kak, how can I speak out more? Or is it okay if I speak out more?" And I feel like us as youth, we need to start giving ourselves permission to express ourselves and to speak out more loudly. And then the second part is being informed, because yes, we have a right to voice our opinion and to voice our criticism, but of course that voice should be well informed so that it can reach the right audience and it can reach the right goal, right? And sometimes what I learn is that if we're talking about the government specifically, if the government's not listening, then sometimes they only listen once we reach a certain threshold where we are loud enough. And loud enough means we are unified in one goal. And second is that it is being amplified through multi-channels and multi-layers of society. I think what makes the recent protests really, really impactful, for example, to give like a very recent example, is because we are unified first and foremost in our demands. And then second part is that different layers of society are voicing it out in their own way. And because of that, it amplifies the voice and it reaches the government and it forces them to respond, even though their response may be lacklustering, may still be more than less satisfying? What's the word?
Satisfactory.
Satisfactory. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, but those stuff helps to push them to. It's making us impossible to ignore, basically. And thirdly, I mean, is that when we talk about voice, sometimes it helps when we are connected to our history. I think one of the main issue that a lot of young people here experience is that we have been, I think, structurally disconnected from a lot of our history, and that causes a lot of us to not understand our role in society and our role in our nation. To give a very simple example is that Indonesia is actually, we have a long history of thinkers, we have a long history of fighters, we have a long history of people who are unafraid to speak out the truth, who are anti-corruption, who won't take no for an answer. And we have a long lineage of those type of heroes, but a lot of young people nowadays are not connected to that history. And because of that, they don't understand that, oh, of course I have this fire inside of me. Of course I have this desire to fight for justice because that is my ancestor. Because this is the lineage that I came from, and this is the history of our country. Our country are built by fighters and thinkers. And if we know that, I think a lot of young people will be more emboldened to speak out more loudly, and it'll be almost impossible for them to be ignored. Like for me, for example, I just recently know that apparently my grandma was one of the volunteer who helped counsel the victim of the 98 mass rape for Chinese Indonesian. And I just recently know that, and I think all this time, right, I've been fighting and speaking out the truth, and I've been very, very passionate about this. But the moment I connect with my history and my root, and I know that, oh, of course, I feel this way because my history is like this, it gives you a whole new level of bravery and boldness, I think. And so I really encourage young people to first, of course, be brave, and then second, be informed, and then third, to connect with your history, because I know that you will find amazing things there.
Okay, please clap for Abigail. There's a very important key takeaways, I think, to remember our root, yeah, to remember our history, because it's sometimes also connecting us, and then we can also understand about the future that we imagine, because we already know about the root, know about our history before. So, okay, now we are already in the same house. I mean, in the Southeast Asia, right? We are in the same community in ASEAN, Association for Southeast Asian Nations. Just like you know, in Indonesia, we already have like one of, how to say that? Pelajaran, mata pelajaran. What is that? A subject, yeah, subject. One of subject, and we also learn about ASEAN. But again, what is the relevance of ASEAN to you? Maybe from Bang, what would make ASEAN more relevant to young people, and then how we can also connect it to every young people across border.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Manik. And first of all, I just would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity for being here today. Actually, for these questions, I was preparing some kind of draft answer, but when I joined the section this morning, I was like, many of that already being responded by the panelists. So the first one is to make ASEAN people-centered community, which is already something that repeatedly mentioned this morning. That's what we all heard. Also, the mechanisms or like the approach that ASEAN have to approach to people is in parallel between top down to ground up. This is something that we, again, repeatedly heard this morning. What I am thinking as a youth and as the country directors of a youth organization called ASEAN Youth Advocate Network, I think the another aspect that we should consider to make ASEAN more relevant is in terms of really basically it's like leaving no one behind. I found this information from the ASEAN Youth Development Index. They do a survey on youth, asking questions like, do you know about ASEAN? Do you feel ASEAN important to you? Do you see ASEAN important to your countries? The result was very positive. Why? Because they only did this survey with youth in university who's in the capital city. So that's why they know about ASEAN. That's why they think ASEAN it's relevant to them. But from my own experience as someone who's not originally from the capital, during my time when I visited my hometown, I saw that they did not get the sense of what ASEAN is or what really ASEAN benefit to them. Like, for example, the visa exemptions or to be able to travel support as such, but they didn't even get a chance to travel abroad. So that's why that's why they care about visa exemption. So what I'm thinking out loud here is to make ASEAN relevant, ASEAN should touch base on different groups of people, not only those who are based in the capitals, who go through university, who got, I would say, privileged to be here in this room, as me in Jakarta, but it's also for those who are in the rural areas. For example, example from Laos, there are a lot of people right now in rural areas who travel to the neighboring countries to work. That's one benefit that ASEAN allows us, but they can only do the hard skill jobs, something that they had to put their hands dirty, and that's because they didn't receive proper capacity training. So what I'm thinking is to make ASEAN relevant to young people, they should touch base on this as well. What are the issues of people in each countries are facing? And trying to grow up from that, from the capacity, building capacity for youth, for make them be able to get employed in different sector in different countries in the ASEAN country. I think that would make ASEAN more relevant, not just for those who are in the capitals. And another thing is what Mr. Pita mentioned this morning regarding to credibility. That's also something that I think ASEAN can move more forward to create credibility. Currently, from my knowledge, I noticed that ASEAN faced a lot of criticisms in terms of the pace that they are working to resolve the conflicts, to intervene in different matters that happen in different countries. So if ASEAN would like to be more relevant, they need to also show outcome. According to a panelist as well this morning, that they need to do both way. Also process, like they need to care about the process to ensuring that they're going properly without crossing the jurisdictions of any countries. But they also need to look to the outcomes of directions. For example, there is the issues of air in ASEAN country. There is a framework, legislations adopted in terms of ensuring the clean airs and reducing burning from different countries. But the issues is it doesn't have legal binding. That such document cannot do the intervention in different countries who actually causing the problem. So to build up this credibility, I think ASEAN leaders or ASEAN need to really find a way to somehow intervene or like influence the decisions of each different countries as well. Basically, it's to try to enhance more regionalisms that we are in the same one ASEAN country. Yeah, so I think that would be my answer.
Okay. Yep. Please clap loud for Bang. That is very interesting key takeaways. Yeah. Even I also remember that someone asked in the panel, should we also create a currency for ASEAN? But maybe again, yeah, the most important thing is the outcome. That also, yeah, we should be more pragmatic. What can benefit each countries, right? And then how we can also connect it, not only for the privilege, but also touch base. Yeah, we also need to be more grassroots. Okay, guys, so we only have like a very little time. So I will invite some of you. I think there's a lot of you guys want to ask. But before that, I also want to invite the discussion so we can also have an insight from the youth organizations around Southeast Asian. So the first one, I will invite a discussion from youth-led organization. Okay. The microphone.
Thank you. So before I start, I just want to say a very quick, salutation and applause to the panelists, and also the moderator for facilitating such an amazing and insightful, conversation. So give a big round of applause to them. Go ahead. Okay. So I guess I'll just make my remark pretty short. I guess I really agree with what the last panelists mentioned about the gaps, because I think when we talk about young people, we are not a homogeneous group. We are so different because of our culture, because of our religion. And so I'm from Youth Lead. So Youth Lead, we work with some very stigmatizing disease within the Southeast Asia region, like malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV. And often we work with teen mothers, young LGBTIQ communities, young drug user, and also young sex worker. And sadly, I don't think any of us here represent that specific community, because this session is about youth aspiration. And I think their aspiration is not so much different than our aspiration. They want to be safe, from online and offline setting. They want to get access to healthcare and also education. They want to make sure that their human right is being protected. And most importantly, they want to make sure that their voices are heard by the leaders. And often in a lot of country contexts, we don't have that exist yet, especially for this kind of like very marginalized, stigmatized group. So I guess my question to two of the panelists, Miss Lim, I think you mentioned about the AI, isn't it? Sorry, maybe I get your name wrong, sorry. But you mentioned about the technology and the AI. During the COVID-19 period of time, I think there is such a strong, young people leveraging on social media to debunk the misinformation. But I guess after COVID, it seems that we have lost that special status, in talking about healthcare within the social media context. And Southeast Asia, we are one of those regions use TikTok a lot, and I think TikTok is a very good platform for us to get access to quality and rubbish information, if I may put so. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, how we can continue leverage on that technology tools. And I think my last question is to all the panelists about intergenerational communication. I fully agree with you. Young people have set such a good and amazing precedent of how we can change the government, but the question is what's next? Because, after all these protests, are we going back to the same toxic culture, top governance? And then we're going to have another protest, another 5 years, another 10 years. Isn't it? Another cycle. So perhaps maybe you can also share how we can leveraging on this momentum of youth uprising and how we can strengthen the governance at a much, maybe within the ASEAN region. Maybe that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Very insightful aspiration from Youthlit, right? And then the second one from Namjai Community Association. Yeah, please give applause.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Your name?
I'm Kino from Namjai Community Association. I'm from Laos. And thank you to our panelists for such an insightful sharing. I also agree with a lot of the discussion today, and a lot of our discussion is based on youth voices, capturing voices, and I also agree with that. And so I would like to give my remarks and also my perspective on this point of view as well, because as a youth myself, I feel like there's an intergenerational gap, not just from another generation, but I think among our youth as well, because youth, according to the ASEAN framework or the ASEAN definition, it's from 15 years old to 35 years old. So I feel like there's quite a big gap. And I think we need to value the opinion of a 15 years old as much the same as a 35 years old youth as well. And for us to be more inclusive, I think we need to have a more intersectional approach to capturing voices, because I feel like youth, we also have different types of groups. We have maybe students, we have young professional, young researcher, or even young parents. So every youth group have different priorities. So what if we can capture all these youth voices and maybe be a more inclusive? So I think this is another approach that we need to focus on, is the intersectional approach. So this would be my point of view of all the sessions. So thank you so much for the opportunity for me to speak today.
Thank you so much. Okay, for the panelists, do you want to respond it first, or should we collect every aspirations or question? Up to me. Okay, then we ask everyone first. Okay, the third one is from the Alumni Parlamento Foinsa Timor-Leste, APFTL. Is there someone from Timor-Leste in here? No, not yet, yeah? Okay. And then Baha'i International Community. Okay, give applause for Baha'i.
Hi, my name is Sonia, and I'm from the Baha'i International Community. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think, as mentioned just now, like we have seen an uprise in all the youths, especially in the past month, right? And this can actually be attributed to a heightened sense of justice in the youths that we see today. And this is the very same light that the Baha'i international community, across all the learnings from the Baha'i community as well, that how we categorize the period of youth is actually this, that youths actually have this heightened sense of justice to bring about the transformation in society, right? But then the question I think that was also posed, and a question that I want to pose, is how can we then actually systematically accompany these youths to bring about this meaningful contribution, right? So I was actually a beneficiary of this empowerment program where I was accompanied all throughout my field of studies and also my field of work to be, I guess, of a contribute to society in small service projects in the community. And these service projects eventually built this vibrant community life that we do see in small saplings all around our neighborhoods currently, right? But it's in this very accompaniment that older youth or even older generations or even younger generations provide to each of the youths that we see today that allow for this meaningful transformation. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for Sonia. And then from Catalyst for Change, is there someone in here? Not yet? Catalyst for Change? Okay, I think I will ask the audience first and then I will go back to you guys. From the audience, is there any question? Okay, the first man here and then the second one. Yeah, two first. Dua dulu ya, two. Oh, maju sini. Please, coming up.
Thank you for the opportunities, everyone. Thank you. You guys are some kind of. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was kind of nervous. Okay, so you guys were like really great panelists. I give a round of applause, everyone. Like this is one of the greatest things that ever happened to my life. So my question is, how do we, as younger generations, change the views of society on us? Because you know, as a younger generations, we have it hard. You know, the job market is horrible, and the price of education is skyrocketing. Hey, we have it hard. Back in the days, it's not that expensive. Back in the days, the jobs weren't really that hard to find. Okay, so how do we change the view of older generations? Maybe in the society where that were mainly ruled by the older generation, that we as a younger people we're not lazy. Like we're not lazy. We're not that we didn't like how can you say it? We're not that unserious. We're always serious. We seek many opportunities, but there are no opportunities. Like the job markets. Like for example, we have like 1 million or maybe I remember that 11 million job seekers currently in Indonesia. But the job market is only like for 200,000 people. Yeah, I think that's how we change the view of societies on us as a younger generations. Like we were always stigmatized. You know. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Please clap. Your name again, sorry? Your name?
My name is Gozi.
Gozi, okay. Thank you. Applause for Gozi. Check. Okay, the second one. Yep, please come.
Thank you thank you also for the panelists and the moderator for the very insightful session. First of all, my name is Salsa. I am from Indonesian Youth Diplomacy Local Chapter West Java in Bandung. And I want to ask, especially for Kak Abi. Okay. If we are flashback in August 2025, we know, right? There was a very massive or big, demonstration and then movement, and we call it as Reset Indonesia. And Reset Indonesia means that we have to reset and reform many stakeholders, such as from the legislative, executive branch, judiciary, and then also police and TNI, right? And then one of the most well-known movement is 17 plus 8 demands from the people, or we call it 17 plus 8 tuntutan rakyat, right? But I am quite chronically online, especially in Twitter, or we call it as X, right? In Twitter, there are many netizens say that this movement is not represent grassroots or not represent other elements such as object online and then women and so on. Meanwhile, I see that this is a good movement because I see that my friends that is not politically aware before, but because of this 17 plus 8 movement, become more politically aware. But in Twitter, there are many netizens said negative things about this movement. So I want to ask Kak Abi, what is your perspective to see this challenge when we are already politically aware about the aspiration about political issue, but there are challenges that a lot of netizens like saying negative things about a good movement. And also maybe for the other panelists, how you see how ASEAN youth can be more politically aware, especially in ASEAN region, because I see that we as youth have to more politically aware, not only in our country, but also in ASEAN region as well. Thank you very much, moderator.
Okay, thank you. Give applause. We have like a lot. Do you still remember? I quite forget. Okay, but maybe I will wrap up some of the question and also the aspiration from the audience. I think I will invite first one is from Shion, yeah? Because the first question is asked about the technology, AI, and TikTok is from Singapore, yeah? From Singapore, from China. Okay, so I'm Singaporean, yeah. So how we can also use the technology or AI to also navigate the youth movement kind of things. And then we also need to answer about how we end the cycle when we coming up as protesters, and then after that, it happened again. It feels like in Indonesia, for example, some of the activists from Reformation era become the public officials, but then they also did something that they criticized before, how to end this kind of things. And then also maybe about the stigmatize of the young people. When we stigmatize as someone who are lazy, yeah, it feels like ageism, right? The older generation always questioning the young generations, how we can respond to it. And then about the movement, I think to make it like more general, how we can also make the political movement of young people also connected to the grassroots, also connected to every elements in every countries, for example. And then how we can also raise up the politically aware about the kind of, for example, the ASEAN, how we can also share the value, share the experience of young people in ASEAN, and how we can also gather the solidarity. Okay, hope you guys can answer. The first question is for Shion.
Hi, Sean here. Not Lim, but Sean. I think regarding the AI, I think that's a very good question, to be honest, or even just TikTok, social media. Just a fun fact, I think the Young Seekers started out with just a Facebook page. We started out as a Facebook page just posting about, ASEAN and China infographics so that more people know about us. And I think it gets some attention of the ministry, teachers, kind of thing, and they want to use our social media content in their lessons. So that's how we started. So I believe that we should not stop the use of AI. or even social media, and we should continue. I don't know what you mean by it stopped, because I still scroll TikTok, and I still see a lot of CSO using this kind of social media as a platform to amplify their voices or to amplify their impact so that more people know about them. I think we should, my stance regarding this is, the baseline is that I think attention in this digital era is the most important thing in everything we do. Be it your own work or like in your CSO or everything, attention is thing. So if you can get the attention of the audience that you are facing, everything else just fall into place, right? That's how algorithm works and everything lah. So I think the next question is, how do you get the attention, right? And my advice is don't just rely on social media. Diversify, go wide from the start, go wide, okay? TYS started out as social media, and we eventually grew, and we have our own community, even our volunteers that supports our day-to-day operations, give back to our own community as well. So that's how you can talk about what's next, right, which is your thing. So don't just rely on one single platform. That's I think the world is bigger than just sticking to your own bubble right now. Just explore, go wide from the start. If you are on TikTok, on social media already, maybe just form like maybe a community that can help you to create content for that. I think that's create more ripple effect, right? I think that's, I hope that answer the what next, or how can we influence more people, have a systematic thing. I think right from the start, once you start small, you have to think about you need to think quickly about going wide. I think that's something unique in Southeast Asia. So I come from a background of startups and all this kind of thing. So one thing that is very different, if you want to survive or thrive in Southeast Asia, you cannot just be satisfied with your own domestic market. Like in US, even if you're on e-commerce or anything, with the market alone, to be honest, other than China and US surviving on internal market, I think the rest of the world cannot lah. So in whatever you do, just go wide. Start small. Be practical. Start small. But you need to think big. How do I start working on other things? How do I create that ripple effect? Leeching probably is not a good word. Leeching on like the digital era that we are in, because I think what makes us different from the older generation are things are easier with digital, right? It's easier to start a business. It's easier to start like the CSO that you guys are passionate about. It's quite difficult in the past because there's no social media. It's hard to get attention and everything. Right now, it's way easier. To be honest, I think the key question to ask is how do you sustain it? Yes, I think creating things, starting the movement, everything is easy. How do you keep the conversation going? I think that is the thing that I think all of us here is still trying to crack. Yeah. So I think I hope that answer a few questions on the ground. And regarding the next question, if I'm or maybe I let other people answer this question. Then
Yeah, sure.
Go question by question might be easier.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Maybe Bang first for the ASEAN.
Which one, sorry?
Okay. The last question. The last question. Yeah, the last question is how we can also make every young people and across border, across the ASEAN, can also politically aware about anything.
Yes. That's all. First of all, it's a very interesting questions and many different ways to shape it. Personally, as someone who work in the legal development field, and as someone who have a project aiming to raise the legal awareness among the youth, I would say it's not just young people to be aware to have political awareness, but political awareness should be universal. It should be everyone. Every citizen should have this. Whether you are young or old, you should have this political awareness. But at the same time, if we ask the questions, how can we make youth in ASEAN have political awareness? It's also quite complex, since we ASEAN, we have different political system in place in different countries. So I would say, as the same as AI, we have to be informed. The government or like political parties need to ensure that they policies or like the people was informed about their rights, their obligations. That's the start. But in order to make how really to make youth in ASEAN know it would depend on not only the political system but also the resources available and the cultural, the traditions. There are a lot of elements because I would say in Laos personally we also have these difficulties in terms of like expressing our opinions, but I would say living in the country myself and working with government sort of, I also feel like this is something that we need to understand. To have political awareness, it's not to just pointing out what are the mistakes, but it's also need to understand the system, understand the mechanisms, understand the policies, the history. Everything is combined, and it's different for each country. That would be my answer.
Okay, that is quite interesting because it's also related to the question about meaningful contribution, right? So everyone should reform, not only for the young people, but the system itself should reform and how they see the young people as subject, not only an object. Okay, and Abby, about the movement, people movements, how to make it like more sustained and
Yeah.
everyone's connected.
Yeah, so I think I see like a like a common thread between like a lot of the questions, and there is how do we make a movement first and foremost more inclusive, and then how do we make intergenerational, and not just intergenerational, movement between groups of youth also work in more synergy, right? And I think this is related to the Reset Indonesia 17+8 questions as well. So I think I'm gonna just answer it broadly through that. Firstly, I do agree that one of the biggest challenge, especially in Indonesia, and I would suspect also maybe in ASEAN, is intergenerational collaboration, precisely because a lot of our culture are very hierarchical to begin with, right? So when we talk to our seniors or when we talk to our elders, there's a difference in the language that we use. There's a gap that we automatically feel. Like when a junior speaks to their senior in a lot of our countries, we feel sometimes reluctant, or maybe sometimes the senior would give this impression of like, oh, what do you know, you're young, just listen to me, I'm the senior, I'm always right. And this type of attitude I have discovered will not encourage innovation, will not encourage young people to be passionate, to give their ideas. And so I think the key to intergenerational working together is, of course, the lowering of our egos. That's first and foremost. And that goes for usually the one who are more senior. We cannot always expect young people to reach up or to be the one who initiate the initiative or to make something work. Sometimes we need to acknowledge that the barrier lies in the older generation, and we do need to hold them accountable to be better. And I don't think that this hierarchical respect towards the elder culture is a bad thing. I think it's a very beautiful thing. But within certain contexts, it can be toxic when brought into extreme. And I think when we work in an organization or in a movement, we need to really hold to what I call the objective-oriented principle, or what it essentially is that, what is our goal here? If, for example, a movement's goal is to eliminate tobacco use, for example, then seniority shouldn't matter, right? Whatever culture, whatever dynamic that hinders the best idea to be found or the best idea to be platformed should be eliminated, because our main objective is to get the best idea to eliminate tobacco use, for example. And if, for example, there's this fallacy called not made here fallacy, where sometimes where people who, us as human beings, we have this ego where we think that the best solution needs to come from my organization. It needs to come from my perspective. It needs to come from my way. Even though basically new ideas and solution comes out every day and from different places. And so we should not only look for solution that comes from our sector, basically. And that requires a lot of humility and the lowering of ego. So that's the first. And then second, I realized that, and this will bridge towards the 17+8, is that intergenerational collaboration or collaboration between different groups to be more inclusive can only work if there's already trust being built. And that trust building cannot start when the crisis hit. That trust building cannot be built instantaneously overnight. We cannot like, okay, we need to work together, let's have a meeting, let's build trust, and then after this 1 hour, we're gonna be best friends. That doesn't work that way, right? And so when crisis hits, it's time to work. It's no longer time to build trust. And so what do we need to do? It is when things are okay, like now, for example, we need to start making friendship cross-border. We need to start building friendship cross-generation, cross-groups. And maybe it doesn't have to be work, right? We can just grab coffee together and have chat together and maybe just start DMing one another and just build that friendship. And so once that trust is there, when crisis hit or when it's time for us to actually do something together, collaborate together, build something together, we can work faster. And I think that is really the key. And going to the question of 17+8, the Reset Indonesia, I think, honestly, Reset Indonesia 17+8 is one of a very real example where there's intergenerational collaboration and there's also cross-group collaboration. So just to give context, the word Reset Indonesia is actually coined by musicians, and then the color scheme, like the pink and green, is created by artists. And then me and a couple of our friends, we did summarize a lot of different demands that has surfaced and circulated over the past few days. And then after that, it was amplified by different people from all layers of society. And even earlier, the one who asked said that a lot of my friends who never talk about politics started talking about politics because of the Reset Indonesia thing. And because it does reach such wide layers of audience. I saw my friends who are makeup artists, who are dancers, who are students, who has lived overseas for years, who have never come to Indonesia, who never speaks Indonesian, or who never talk politics, started talking about politics. And so I think that is a very good cross-cultural, cross-generation and groups collaboration. But did it includes all groups? Of course not. There's imperfection in every movement, and there's mistakes being made, especially when things are done within crisis and within crunch time, right? And so how do I respond towards like a good movement, but it has a lot of people are criticizing it? I categorize those voices into three. The first are the buzzers. Do you guys know what buzzers are? Do you guys have buzzers in Singapore and Laos? No? Oh, allow me to introduce Indonesian culture, right? Okay. So buzzers are basically paid accounts to spread certain information online. It can be bots, it can be a real person, it can be, yeah. So first, I distinguish the buzzers. If it's from buzzers, and once you're familiar with buzzers, it's very easy to identify. I just ignore, right? Second, there are people who just don't like the movement or the person, or who just wants to rage bait, or who just wants to spread pure misinformation, like fitna and stuff like that. There's that. And then the third, there are those who actually cared and have very, very valid criticism. And they may be angry because they care. They may deliver it in a way that is not very nice, but essentially they still care and their criticism are valid. I only listen to the third one. The second one I ignore also. If it's already about like misinformation, fitna, usually I clarify if it's big enough. And so for the third one, of course I listen, and I think the main thing that me and a lot of my friends and a lot of people who were already bought into the 17+8 Reset Indonesia, we are now talking to one another, like I said, building connection and consolidating. Because if it's the next time for us to go, we can do it in a more synergic way, right? But again, there will always be people who will talk just negatively about something just because they don't like it. That's okay, that's your freedom. But if you guys support the movement or you bought into the objective-oriented principle that a certain movement is going for, you can just not listen to those voices.
Yeah.
But remember, distinguish the three, right? Listen to the third one, not the first two.
Okay, give applause for Abigail. Okay, I'm so sad because our time is very limited, but do you guys have any like maybe a closing statement or we can just close it? I'm good. All good? Sean?
I would like to address the question regarding jobs.
Sure,
right?
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the job market.
Yes.
I want to say this because I worked in a workers' union dealing with jobs, helping youth, particularly looking at youth in trade unions and everything. I'm not too sure where. I believe Indonesia has unions as well. Regarding that, I do want to say that there is no future-proof industry or job anymore. So, I would say what you guys are experiencing will be the norm soon. So I think place your bet not on like job titles, industry or anything. Place your bet on transferable skills, right? I think it would be not just that a norm, like what you work would definitely probably not be in the field that you studied. Yeah, so I think place our bet on identify those transferable skills that help you grow and everything, and that probably can help you guys secure a job better. Yeah, correct.
The IJism, right? Yeah.
Regarding the stigma, okay, I'm a firm believer of, it's very hard to change people. And it's very hard to change people, what they think and everything. So building on what Abigail said, we just change how we listen, right, on things. And I think as youth, like, whatever they say, we are entitled, focus on social media, whatever, I think we are still the same as them in their generation when they are youth. It's just we are expressing it in a different way through TikTok, through maybe demonstrations, through whatever we are doing. It's just the same, but just in a different format. So rather than resetting what others think, I think we can reset ourselves. Just think differently, probably you will feel better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, please give applause for Sean also. You want? We actually don't.
Okay.
But it's okay.
I just want to add a little bit in terms of the intergenerational cooperation.
Yes.
I actually having this attitude towards the generations, and I'm thinking that we as a young people, we often, and it's true that the future is for us. But to building it, it's not
Our
only ours.
responsibility,
It's
right?
not
Yeah.
only our responsibility. So what I'm thinking is, it's also aligned with the ASEAN plan towards 2045, that it's our shared future, not only for between every country, but every generations need to work together towards the change that we would like to have. And to cooperate between different generations, between different people, what I have done with my work is to find a common thing that we have together, not differences. We have to think, what do we have in common, the goals that we would like to towards. For ASEAN, for example, the young peoples and ASEAN leaders, what we want is to make ASEAN a better place. So that's our North Star that we have to go towards, and that's something that we need to think and keep in mind, that it's our shared future together, our generation. Yes.
Not only us, yeah. Okay. Please, round of applause for every panelist in here. That is very insightful discussion, guys. Thank you so much. Again, for the closing, yeah. Please keep organized, keep mobilized, and keep voicing out our voices. And to close this session, let me use pantun. And please answer it with cakap, yeah? Okay. But I will make it in Jaksel accent. Okay. Walking down the Block M Street. The sun is warm, the sky is so blue. The discussion may end, but let's not quit. The change begins with me and you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to our panelists for such an insightful discussion. Once again, let's give them a warm round of applause. Before closing this session, we kindly invite the panelists to remain on stage and stand up for a group photo.